Good evening, welcome back to the Cinematic Hood. That's how we're doing it now. This is September 26, 2022, 9:03 p.m. and I'm super late and I think what were the 2 days for the weekend? So Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Friday, both the days I missed my gym session and this is not gonna continue. Quickly, like stick to 5-minute constraints and call it a day. Today's documentation is more or less about Oreos and geometry nodes. I have to document yesterday, a notion for this. Woke up at 11. Damage control took Snowy down. BCS course progress, I did this, and character rigging on Duick. I couldn't do that much because most of my time went in geometry nodes. I'll get to what I did. Solution to yesterday's dilemma. So the dilemma was I need to somehow start uploading on the channel Rajmeet Singh again. So focus for the main channel content is going to be only on character animation and nothing else. Now the aim is to understand Duick rigging and animation to the point that 2 videos a week can be pulled off of these. Setting a realistic deadline of a week from now, so from next Monday and Thursday there must be videos uploaded to Rajmeet Singh Arora. Let's go. That's what I had written on Sunday. That's yesterday. Of course, the thing that's worth noting here is yesterday I did watch 4 videos of the course. The first video, how does geometry nodes work? The little that I'm able to understand. Fields is just mathematical data or algorithm which can be used by set position or any other such node to apply transformations to any mesh inside Blender. Fields can comprise of multiple vectors, noise, textures, etc. placed in a way to achieve the desired displacement or any other effect. Sockets. Now circle socket means it's a constant value like radius, xyz transform, etc. Diamond is a field. Diamond with a dot can be a field, but currently it's a constant. Okay. Multi-input socket is joint geometry. Socket colors. Gray is a float value, green is integer value. This kind of pink is boolean and blue is vector. Implicit conversion. Usually we want the same color socket input to go into same color socket output. But let's say if this was a float value and you put it directly into the purple color vector value without having this in between. Okay, if you just take this here and put it here, then there'll be an implicit conversion where combine xyz as in the same value will be going into all the 3 vectors x, y and z. It's the same as putting a combine xyz node in between. Modeling and materials. Creating towers. So we made towers inside Blender. To make a tower, first we need a grid of vertices. Insert the grid in. Extrude up to make the towers. There's a node called mesh grid node, then mesh extrude mesh, then mesh scale elements with individual checked on. So then every single tile of the grid you can scale it down like this. We basically ran a inset, but inset node doesn't exist in geometry nodes as of now. So we extrude and then scale to 0. Extrude, leave it in the place and then scale it down. Mesh extrude mesh. Now you want all these faces up. So we extrude it up then. But the first extrude mesh, the top input goes into selection for the second extrude mesh. Materials, we add set material node. Okay, that was nice to have the bandwidth to go over that right now. Already 3-4 minutes. Understanding instances. The way we make instances, Alt D instead of Shift D. Surprisingly huge, seen a lot of instances easy to navigate inside cycles because the way cycles processes instances. And I did see this happening in the Oreo project, and I'll walk you through that. Mesh displacement, geometry node modifier on the ground plane, add a noise texture, add subtract to 0.5. So in Blender, when we see factor or FAC, it means the range of 0 to 1. We want to be displacing both above the ground and below the ground. We were trying to get an undulation in the ground. So to displace that, we subtract 0.5. That's when we're going from -0.5 to 0.5 instead of 0 to 1. Add vector math node allows us to scale. Scale allows us to multiply a vector with a float. Add set position between group and put an output. Plug the scale vector. Normal vector always has a length of 1. Noise texture plugged into subtract makes it go from 0.5 to -0.5 to 0.5. Control plus into scale of set position. A lot of intuitiveness here, but anyway, I did quite understand a few things with geometry nodes and basic fundas and concepts, which is why I decided I'm gonna apply something here and make something myself. And what better to start with default cubes Oreo tutorial. Now I'm gonna quickly just open the project here. It's looking a bit messy currently. Also, you cannot see all of the Blender things that you should be seeing. And this bottom, okay, we're good to go. Wait, let's just make a new layout. That'll be easier. Okay, so this is what my scene looks like. I'm gonna go into my geometry nodes structure, and here is where all the magic is happening. So if you see, if I'm on the Oreo, that's just one thing. A few important things that I've learned here along the way, I'm gonna go ahead and quickly try and explain those. So of course you see that here there is the Oreo, the rendered version. Let's just keep it solid view, and let's just take the cream depth to 2. Okay, so it's all procedurally done. The first thing here is you see this is not just an image texture slapped on top of a cylinder or a circle which has been extruded. This is actual geometry, and you have to keep the resolution here in the group input is pointing to the subdivisions, which is what is making it extremely heavy, like 7.2. I don't know why it's showing 7.2k vertices here. Apparently it has like over 1 million vertices, this structure here. So I'm gonna take this to 0 for the time being. It's gonna look crap, but it's gonna be easier for me to navigate around the viewport. Okay, now how do you get this to happen, where you take an image PNG and then you create geometry out of it? That's where this particular part comes in, image displacement. Okay, so we basically have group input, okay, subdivide mesh and extrude mesh. So we have a set position node because we want to change the position, so set position, and inside set position we have added a combine XYZ because we only want to offset the position in Z axis here. So, and the Z we take out into multiply, just this is just because for ease of control in the values. This here can be avoided. I just was trying to play around to make it a little smooth without having to like add subdivisions, but turns out you have to. Okay, to begin with, we have a circle, right? A circle which has been subdivided multiple times. So we have number of vertices going on, and on that circle we've added the geometry nodes. Now here you put an image texture. This is one important thing which default cube, the person, I don't even know his name, he does not mention in his tutorial. I'm going to quickly go through that. The clip art that you want to be going in here into the image texture needs to be like this. It has to have white pixels for the design and not black pixels. So what I mean by that is, let's say one of these are black, so Oreo texture 3.png. If I was to open Oreo texture 3.png, png3, what will happen is something like this. And I was kind of stuck as in why this is happening and why am I not able to see the details. Like I've exported as PNG and everything. I've just extruded it as a PNG and everything, but what happens is in Blender and in all these softwares, even in Photoshop, the way they consider displacement is all black values mean nothing and white values or white pixels mean something. So even if you look at Photoshop, when you have masks here, white means everything is visible, and if this was a black mask, that means nothing, or those parts are not visible. You don't want to have a black PNG, you want to have a white data PNG. So if I just change this to white now, which I think was this, you're gonna have your displacement happening. To this displacement we're adding a vector 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. This is because for some reason it just tiles 4 times or 5 times, how many ever times. The position node is by default here, but you have to keep it to have that effect. Now this is where we reached till here. Now we extruded the mesh. Subdivide mesh is just to add more like geometry and more. Now the other important thing here is, if you see, this at the bottom is simply an instance of the top one. It's not a completely separate thing. The way we do that is through instance on points. Now for instance on points, we have this points coming from where? Coming from a mesh line. Now we basically use the mesh line. If I was to show what this is, these are the 2 points of the mesh, count is 2 and end points. Now here for start location, end location, we've given combine XYZ because we only concerned in Z, and we've multiplied this by -1. So if I just control H to open this, the bottom one is multiplied by -1 and this. Now here combine XYZ, and we're basically multiplying a value here. Now the screen depth node is just nothing but a value node. If you just type in Shift A, say value, this is what this node is, and you plug that value into multiply, then that's going into group input just because I wanted to be here custom cream depth. Going to multiply is going into the mesh line start point and end point, the difference being end point has a -1 to it, so it's going down. So basically what happens is if I increase this, you see slowly this is doing that reflection thing that we want. That's that. And now this is being instance, this is being used as instance on points. Now you'll see that what happens is this comes together like this. So we need to rotate instances, click here, rotate instances, and inside rotate instances we have top and bottom. No, this is completely different, top and bottom biscuit displacement. So what is happening here is group input. Okay, translate instances. Yeah, just like we have rotate instances, because we've rotated it, we took this one, we rotated it in the X direction by 180. That's how we get this, and then even in Z by 180, so it looks the same when flipped vertically in the local space. Now for position, because at the end of the animation, if you see the video on my Instagram feed and on my YouTube shorts, the thing that happens is you move it like this one, you move the top biscuit. Okay, we haven't reached till there, you have to come to join geometry for that, merge by distance. Now yeah, if you move this, it's gonna go up, and if you move this is gonna come down, okay, just to have that nice effect. And this is something I figured myself. Like in the tutorial, this part was not included, but translate instances. Initially, what I was trying to do is have the same value go and then have a multiply -1 value here to basically, like if I take it 1 up, that should go 1 down, things like those. But then later on I decided, let's just have it as separate. Yeah. So index equals B, index equals 0 is the top one, index equals 0, yeah, top one, and index equals 1 is the bottom one. That's how we're translating instances, and in the end we're joining geometry. Even we're doing set material. Okay, for the cream we just add a simple cylinder and subdivision surface, set shade smooth. And for depth we connect it directly to this value, the reflection thing, and we multiply it by 2 because you want the depth to be twice the distance. Yeah, the distance is just 1 time, so you multiply it by 2, and that's when you get. That was that. I will just quickly actually play the video as well. Yep, so a lot of fun making this first ever geometry notes project, and this geometry notes tree, even though majority of it was from the default cube tutorial, I learned a ton, and I feel kind of confident now, even with my fundamentals clear, that if anything that is to be modeled, I can at least start thinking in terms of how it could be done inside geometry notes. Definitely I need to follow a lot more tutorials now, the ones that I've saved in a playlist on my YouTube channel. That was the major thing I had to cover. Yeah, in the morning I woke up at 5:30 today, finally. 6:45, Snowy was surprisingly sleeping. Usually doesn't happen, so I'll wait for him to wake up. Then in the morning I was doing all this thing where small things I learned, right? So inside Blender, you can set, if you want to press shift page down to move 5 or 10 frames ahead, you can set all these things inside preferences, which is what I did. So this is the first Blender project where I actually used the sequencer or added music and then made the keyframes here. So I made hold keyframes. Oh, Blender just went away. Okay. Interesting. So I was saying, this is the first time I've used the sequencer and I've added music here. And based on, okay, one important thing I learned is playback. If this is kept to play every frame or frame dropping, then this won't sync up, like you won't be able to understand the beats and all the animation. So I'm going to come in here, playback, and put it to sync to audio. Then it works just fine. For lighting, I did a pretty, this was the outliner, right? Yep. For lighting, I did a very basic setup. I actually have an HDRI in the background because I wanted it to be like super bright, because that's how the commercials are, like Oreo. You don't have like dark moody things like this going on. It reminds me, is everything fine here? You know, the footage looked a bit, I had to record in 4K, I forgot completely. It looked a bit like smudged or grainy, I don't know. We'll fix that. So other than the HDRI, there are 3 area lights, and these area lights are like 50,000 watt or something. How bright are them? They 500. These two are 500. This one is, I think, how many is this? 50,000 watt. So the HDRI plus all of this lighting gives us this. Something is off. Is the HDRI off? How did the HDRI just go off for no reason? Why is it looking so dark? Was it so dark? Of course I did color correction in Premiere, but after I look at the final video, here also I did some lumetri. This is way too dark. For some reason it was looking fine to me. Of course you never want to be doing everything. Like you can use the composer in Blender, but I have all these other tools that I'm more familiar with, so I just use those. Anyway, 20 minutes. A lot to document. What do I do? Thank you so much for being in the cinematic hood. So good to have you here another day, listening to what I have to say. I will catch you tomorrow. Peace.